You're watching Parker Success Academy with Dr. William E. Morgan.
Hello, I'm Dr. William E. Morgan, and this is Parker Success Academy, where we explore models of business success in chiropractic practices. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Todd Pickman. Todd, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Sure. So I've been practicing almost 18 years. I started off in Gonstead, and I worked with a Gonstead seminars instructor for my first 8 years in practice. Was looking to do something a little bit more with patients, so I discovered chiropractic biophysics, went that direction, became advanced certified in that in 2012, and moved out to Idaho to actually work at Dr. Deed's clinic that he was opening, Ideal Spine. That was a great opportunity, learned a ton, met a lot of great people, and then had decided to move on and ended up opening my own clinic. And then in my own clinic, combined Gonstead, structural rehab, and then I knew that a third piece was just seemed to be missing, and that was addressing functional movement. And so we put those systems together as well. And so now we're addressing segment, posture, and movement.
Well, that's great, because posture is chiropractic biophysics, Gonstead is intersegmental. This is global function and motion. As we talked before we started the program, as I knew Don Harrison, I knew Deed Harrison when he was knee high to a grasshopper. I actually met my wife in Don Harrison's office.
Nice.
So what's a fun fact about you, something that most people wouldn't know?
A fun fact about me. Well, I just screwed up my thumb in jiu-jitsu. So that's a fun fact. So I'm taking time off that. Besides that, we're here in Idaho. So in Idaho, we like off-roading and guns. So there's lots of that out
Oh,
here.
good. I've done jiu-jitsu most of my life till I turned 55. I stopped rolling because I figured I got through it this long without a broken bone or a neck injury, because there's so many headlocks and chokes in there. But yeah, I remember lots of thumb moves that hurt like the dickens after somebody did some small joint work on me. So, you're an active guy. Can you explain your business model?
Sure. Yeah, our business model is not necessarily trying to be a really high volume type of chiropractic clinic, but rather, because I've done that before, and just like we're joking about, I screwed up my thumb in jiu-jitsu. Chiropractic is a little bit hard on the body when you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of patient visits per week, and I felt like there was more I wanted to do with each patient. So I've switched gears, and I see less patients, and we have a more in-depth type of managing their case. And like I was saying earlier, looking at segment, posture, and movement. So it's longer visits. There's a portion of it that's health insurance, portion of it self-pay, some personal injury. So there's a wide variety. There's all types of patients that we attract. Some are strongmen competitors and super fit, and then others are 75-year-old grandparents that have never exercised a day in their life. And so our systems can adapt and appeal to all different types of people. And so, yeah, our business model is, I have a fairly big clinic. I have probably more staff than the average chiropractor. But the model works because we're delivering a higher level of service. We're collecting more per visit, and that helps pay for the additional overhead. And frankly, knowing what I know now and practicing the way I practice now, I don't think I could ever go back to how I practiced before.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. And we met on the internet, and I was just fascinated that how you made the bridge from basically structural chiropractic to functional, and have put those together, which I think that's the marriage we really need to go with. So, is there any? You said you have other folks working in your practice other than chiropractic. What additional therapies or professions do you offer in your practice?
Yeah, so it is, as far as licensed professionals, it's straight chiropractic. I mean, we do old school chiropractic. So, I mean, we're very specific segmentally. It's myself and my associate chiropractor. And then in our exercise department, our main exercise therapist is a physical therapy assistant. And so his background is working in a PT clinic. However, we've kind of taken him over to our side and introduced him to the power of chiropractic and how looking at things segmentally and with movement, how that's such a just powerful combination, seeing a patient's x-rays and understanding what's going on with them structurally and not just doing a functional assessment only. So essentially, yeah, it's primarily chiropractic. And that was also something that was important to me in building this out, is that I didn't necessarily want to do a medical integration. I didn't want to bring in other licenses and practitioners. And I understand that some people like that, and more power to them. I wanted to do things under the scope of chiropractic. And so that's what we've done.
Well, it sounds like you're a functional movement kind of guy. If you're into jiu-jitsu, and when I go to jiu-jitsu seminars, they look a lot like technique seminars for chiropractors. As you're learning,
very specific, very precise.
It is very precise, and you're learning specifics. And it's for me is when I can't do something, when the function's impaired, that stops me from living my life to fullest. And we want to magnify. We want to have everybody express their maximum amount of life and health in their livelihood. So, what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is being able to practice the way that you want to practice. So in my case, I really enjoy practicing how I do this now, practicing a schedule that works for you and your family. So for myself now, I work 4 half days, and I see as many patients as I want to see. I have a full schedule, and I'm getting great results with my patients. And so success, I think, at least for me, at least the world, according to me, is, again, just working a schedule that I can be balanced with my family. So it's not 1,000% just in the clinic grinding. I mean, have a lot of respect for those that have done that over the years, but that's not really how I necessarily want to do this for me. And then also being able to provide for my team and be a good leader for my team and have them grow as individuals as far as working in our clinic. That's something else that we've focused a ton on, is team building and really helping hone these individuals in that we oftentimes spend more time with in our own family. So I think success is just being able to get to the point where you can look back at the end of your life and know that you've made an impact on people, you've made a difference, you made a change, and you didn't just work in a job.
Well, and that's kind of where I want to go with that question of just success, because there's people who want to stack up a bunch of dollar bills that they can count at the end of their life, and others who want to help others. You need to spend time with your family. You want to help those people who've entrusted their health with you, to have maximize their health. But also for nice and private practice, it was, I was taking care of my family, but there was 5 other families that relied upon my practice for their livelihood. So,
sure, yeah.
I owed it to them. And it sounds like you invest in their future and their training as well, and making them better.
Yep, absolutely. Like, for example, today, as soon as we get off of this, I'm rushing into the clinic because we're doing a training today that we prepped for starting last night. So I'm very much a systems guy. And that's something I've learned over the years that I really have an affinity towards, is building systems, seeing things that don't work and tweaking them and making them better. And so today we're going in and we're actually doing a training on recalls, as fun as that is.
So have you read Frank Davinsky's book, what is it? The E-Myth for chiropractors?
No.
So it's about systems.
For chiropractors, no.
Yeah, it's basically about, do you work for yourself or you're an entrepreneur, and you basically, it sounds like you have broken the myth that you can actually have other people do work at your clinic even if you're not there.
Yes, and that's that's something that literally right before I got on this with you, I got off a consultation call with a chiropractor that's practiced for 10 years, and he's opening up in a gym. And as we're going through this conversation, one of the questions I asked him, I said, in your practice plans, are you planning on building a team and training a team, or are you gonna be doing this on your own? And he said, well, at first I'm just gonna be doing this all on my own. And I said, well, what if you had systems and you had the confidence to be able to hire someone, knowing that you have a step-by-step training process and that they would help you be more successful, leverage your time, offer a better service for your patients, and be more profitable and be able to actually do this. And so that's where that conversation went. And ultimately, there's a chapter in a book that I wrote called Departmentalizing. And the whole purpose of that chapter was, back when medical integration started in chiropractic, that concept really intrigued me, as far as how do you have a fully functional department in your clinic that operates almost in your absence? right? And it renders services, helps your patients, generates revenue. It's a win-win all around. And like I said earlier, I didn't necessarily want to do that in a different licensure with medicine. So that's where, because I already had a affinity to functional movement, I was thinking, how do I do this in a functional movement application? And that's what we've done, is we've departmentalized our clinic. So like in our clinic, we have a traction department, we have a functional movement department, and we have a chiropractic department. So we have, basically it's like 3 clinics in one.
Wow.
And exactly as you said, I've been able to take vacations and go out of town for 10 days with my family, turn over the practice to my associate doctor. And it's a very easy transition for the patients, because it's not just me who they're seeing the rest of the departments, the rest of the team. And it makes it very easy to switch out the chiropractor when it's still a familiar setting in all the other pieces that they're doing.
It would seem that as a student, there'll be a lot of students and recent graduates watch this show, that when you start off your practice, have that as kind of a goal later on, that I don't have to be here every day. I remember my first 10 years in practice, I took 1 week vacation. That was my honeymoon. And until I understood the concept of, basically, it's not about me. It's about the patients. Sure. And I'm doing no good to anybody if I'm burnt out. So you talked about your book. I want to hear more about that, but what's a book that you would recommend to read?
I was just looking this up to make sure I got the title right, because I'm actually going through a book. I don't usually read books. I listen to them on Audible. Yeah. And I'm going through the 4 disciplines of execution. And so that one is a great book. I'm going through that. My office manager is, my exercise team. I'm trying to get all of my staff to go through this. My associate doctor is going through it. And we're planning in the beginning of January of applying these 4 disciplines into our practice. So it's a book I'm excited about. I'm about a third of the way through it right now, and I'm loving it. So I would highly recommend this for chiropractors, because I think it is completely applicable to what we do in practice.
And again, it's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution?
Yep, The 4 Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChensey, Sean Covey, and Jim Huling. There's 3 different authors.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell us about your book. Have you published it yet?
Yes. It was published a couple years ago. It's called Move Well Secrets, and you can get a copy of the book if you go to Move Well Secrets. No, sorry, it's book.movenowyou.com is what it is. Book.movenowyou.com, and it's essentially a book. It's a very easy read. It gives you a bird's eye view, just overview of why in the world as a chiropractor would you even be interested in functional movement? Why would you want to put this in your practice? And what are the pieces to consider in doing so? And I touch on this. I believe there's 18 different chapters. It's a quick read. You could probably read it in an afternoon or a couple of days. And yes, so far, I think we have about 3,000 copies out there, and I've gotten great feedback. I've gotten pictures from chiropractors in Singapore that are reading this, eating breakfast, and sending it to me, which has been really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So in your journey, do you have something you could attribute, you can go back to and say, this was the worst moment in my journey as a chiropractor or in life, and from that worst moment, how did you pivot?
Yeah, so I think probably the worst moment, honestly, was when I moved out to Idaho. I'll tell you. And it was like, it was something that there was a lot I learned from it. There was a lot of things in hindsight that I probably would have tweaked a little different, but I look at where I'm at now, and I know if I didn't go through those things, it wouldn't have led me to the path that I'm on today. And so basically I was working as an associate doctor in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 8 years, had a great setup, and then caught my attention to pivot and change gears and get involved in chiropractic biophysics. And it was a really exciting opportunity. And I then left and then had to start a practice from scratch again, which was okay. I didn't mind doing it. But just so many changes and so many stresses involved with that. And then, so that was my wife and I moving, and then she got pregnant, and we had our first boy. So just so many things happening at once. And then we decided to build our own clinic. And so it was the first time in my life I had ever had that many stresses come together at one time. And it really pressed me. And I just had never been faced with that ever before. And I'm happy that I've gone through that, because up until that point, I felt like I never really had a extremely pressing challenge. I'd always hear other people talking about these things, and I could never totally relate, because I'd always had a pretty easy life. I practiced as an associate doctor, was always very successful and did very well. And I'd go home at the end of the day, didn't have to worry about things. I'd come in the morning, see patients, and that was it. And now I've gone to the point where I've started a couple of practices. And as much as I dreaded having to put the systems together, now I realize in hindsight, I actually like putting the systems together. And that's exposed a whole new joy for me above and beyond just being a clinician.
Fantastic. So what advice would you give a younger version of yourself as you graduate from college? By the way, where'd you graduate from college?
I graduated from Cleveland Chiropractic in Los Angeles.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, so what year did? Well, you shouldn't ask that, but yeah. So, Cleveland College. I'm friends with Dr. Carl Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give yourself as you graduated from Cleveland College?
Yeah. So, the advice that I would give myself, I'd follow a similar path that I followed, meaning I think that every chiropractor should become an associate doctor first and really hone their technique, learn communication, learn systems, and do this with someone else there that has done it and can mentor them and help them, and learn what you want, what you don't want, versus trying to come out of school and do it all from scratch and go straight into building your own practice. I personally feel like that would make things extremely more challenging, because there are great associate positions out there. You just have to find them. So I think for a graduating chiropractor, practice communication, practice systems, understand the importance of this stuff while you're still in chiropractic school. And then when you graduate, get out there and go in somewhere where, again, you can essentially learn this and develop on someone else's dime, instead of having all the pressure on you.
And what Todd's talking about with these systems is so that they're basically, it's something that's in place. We have them at the university that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time somebody asks a question. We have a system for that. If someone comes in with this type of coverage, here's how we handle it. So is that correct, Todd? That basically
Sure.
It takes your staff know how to behave, because you have a system, not just, hey, let's go out and talk to the boss again. The boss has empowered the staff with a system, and they understand how the system works. So actually, you've given them the power to implement this.
Sure. Yeah. It's having systems and having very predictable outcomes, because you have a process and a journey that a patient goes through in your practice. So the patient knows what to expect, your staff knows what to expect, every department knows what the other department's doing. And even though I think to some people who maybe are not wired that way or haven't practiced long enough to see why that's needed, is that it is more work on the front end, and it provides so much more peace and just smooth sailing for someone's care and for your team. And it just creates so much more harmony later on, of investing the time to do that initially and follow tried and tested systems, not just with patient care, but again, with, like you were saying, if someone comes in and says some kind of objection for something, how do you handle that? And those are things that, even coming out of chiropractic school, I always felt like I was a decent communicator, but until I had practiced for several years and then actually started training specifically in human communication, understanding how people communicate, identifying different personality types, until I got into that point, I didn't really understand why people were acting the way that they were acting. And I'm not just talking about patients, I'm talking about friends and staff and spouse, and so I mean, these are things that extrapolate to your entire life, not just what you do as a chiropractor in your clinic.
Fantastic. So chiropractic marketing and advertising to patients has been a big topic we're interested in. So what tips would you give based upon your practice on the topics of chiropractic marketing and advertising?
I think it's figure out a way to make you unique and different. Have something that is a unique selling proposition in your community. If you are the same exact thing as every other chiropractor down the street, you will be seen as a commodity, meaning, hey, I'm going to go to a nail salon that's $5 cheaper and it's a mile closer to my house, versus, no, I'm going to drive 20 miles over to this place that's doing something revolutionary. Like, the reason in our practice that we actually have patients who fly in every week to be seen from out of state, is because of the fact what we're offering them is different. They see it clearly. And so those are systems that we've bottled and packaged, and we train to other chiropractors as well.
Well, and you said the word unique. When you're unique, you're automatically the best in the world. By the definition of unique, it means you're the only one. That's all there is. There's nobody else like you. If you're one of many, you're competing for that number one position. But if you're unique, you're automatically the top of your game.
Yeah, true.
So Todd, what's something that keeps you up at night, keeps you awake?
Yeah, it keeps me up. Well, I'll tell you, last night I was keeping up, and it wasn't just because I was sleeping with my 4.5-year-old little boy and he was kicking me, but it was essentially thinking about our training today as far as how to make our staff training just excellent, engaging our team. And so it's things that keep me up. Well, you know what? Maybe a better way of answering that is things that used to keep me up even more so, and keep me up in a way that drove me to build the systems, was because I've always been busy in practice. We always see lots of new patients. And there was this feeling of patients are coming through the door and I'm missing things with them. I'm missing things clinically. I'm missing systems. I'm missing ways of engaging them and helping them transform and change their lives. And so it lit a fire into me to quickly build the solutions to these things that I felt like I was digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper, because I kept seeing more and more patients. Now I had more people in the past that I needed to do things better than I was doing at that moment. And so those are the things that really kept me up. Now I'm sleeping quite well most of the time. But it's because of the fact that we had to try and test and learn the systems. And now we're on the 20th or 30th reiteration of said system, and we have tested it and we see it working. And so, to be honest, I don't stay up very late at night. I'm not kept up very late at night. So
good for you. That's all right. So we at Parker frequently talk about the 10X concept. What is something that you've done in your business that had a 10 times return on its effort or its investment?
Yeah, well, let's see. Talking about things that we've done inside of our consulting business, which is Move Now University. That's something that I've seen leverage very much so, because we're helping chiropractors all over the world. And so in that, I've been able to leverage my time, energy, expertise, and I see this work with more doctors, their staff, their patients. Something, for example, that we did earlier this year when the whole COVID thing happened, I was just starting to ramp up our personal injury reach in our practice, okay? And so a couple of programs that I got involved in, one in particular, Dr. Jeff Kronk from Smart Injury Doctors.
Oh, yeah.
He and I have become very good friends, worked very closely. He was just out here for our last in-person event. He's coming out to our February event this next year. So Dr. Jeff Kronk taught me quite a bit as far as how we could tweak things with our practice personal injury wise. And something I built is this online automated video sequence that we would then send to attorneys that they would watch, and it would educate them about what we did that made us unique in the spinal ligament injury market. And then there was a series of things that happened that would then get them to book a Zoom call with us. We would then meet them in person, and then we would develop that relationship and nurture that relationship. So that's something that I learned to leverage our time. But then I went a step further and I figured out how to clone that process. And then we built that process out for about 65 other chiropractic clinics.
Whoa.
And so now there's doctors all over the country that are using the same process we did to accelerate the rate in which they can build meaningful relationships with attorneys, not because they are offering to cut the bill or do something that's somewhat shady, but because they're educating them on a higher level of quality care and how we can do better for their client.
So I've just become friends with is Dr. Kronk is a chiropractor and an attorney, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yep, correct. Yep,
so,
that's right.
So we've been interacting on LinkedIn as well. So
cool.
What is your superpower? I think you've already shared it with us.
Superpower, I think, is just looking at a situation, be able to stand back and figure out how to engineer systems to make it run smoother.
I think that's been the whole theme of your talk here today. So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 5 years?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is just having to really be unique in the marketplace. And so I'm biased. I teach a model of putting this together, of how you put together different systems that different people teach, but I'm putting the systems together to take these programs, combine them. So segment, posture, movement. I think that the future of what we do has to be a well-rounded explanation of how we are taking care of human health by addressing more than just one component. At the same time, not degrading our principles as a chiropractor. So I think that the future of chiropractic really has to continue to embrace what we do in the spine and in the nervous system, but address those other pieces that oftentimes we roll the dice and we hope a patient gets lucky and they go to another provider that's going to provide something for them, and not badmouth what we do as chiropractors, or not take that patient away and make them feel like because they saw a PT and they showed them a piriformis stretch, that's the thing that solved their problem, versus it was a well-rounded approach. So I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but that's where I feel that there's a huge need for us as chiropractors, is not to water down what we do, but to build it up, but still maintain what we do with affecting the nervous system.
Bam. So what's one takeaway that you'd like to leave with the audience? And can you share some contact information for you, Dr. Todd Pickman?
Yep, great. So takeaway would just be that for every problem that you think that you have in practice, there is a solution, and the solution is usually in a system that was not either created, followed, or managed. And so I feel like chiropractic is the best profession in the world. We need the best systems in the world to be able to get this out to our patients. And as far as contact information to get a hold of me, you can go to our website, which is movenowu, like university.com. All the information's on the website there. So movenowu.com.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us today at Parker Success Academy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching another episode of Parker Success Academy with Dr. William E. Morgan.